Hello everyone, this is Prem Kumar. Welcome to this video on operator ID in Pega. I would like to start this video by looking into the user account creation in Facebook. Let's say a user Bob, he wants to use the Facebook application. The minimum requirement is he needs to have a valid user account. Without any user account, Bob can never access the Facebook application. This is exactly similar to Pega. If you want to use a Pega application, you need to have a valid user account registered within the Pega application. Now let's get back to Facebook and see how Bob can create a new user account. Facebook has self-provisioned that using the sign-up process. So Bob can use the sign-up process and register all his details. He can enter all his personal details and click on sign up. That will create a new user account. So what really technically happens at the backend is the Facebook software code, it kicks in and then it creates a new user account into the Facebook data center. So Bob, next time when he logs in, all these details will be validated against the user account that is stored in the Facebook data center. Once the validation is successful, Bob can sign up into Facebook application and he can use the Facebook application. Bob will also have a provision to update his account settings. He can update whatever details he wants using the Facebook account settings option, and technically all those details that are updated by Bob will get updated into the Facebook data center. So this is how all the user accounts are managed into the Facebook application. Now let's check into the Pega application. In Pega application, we don't call it as a user account. Instead, we call it as a term operator ID. So whenever you hear the term operator ID, just remember that it is exactly same to the user account in Facebook. To use the Pega application, be it any role, be it a developer, be it a lead system architect, be it administrator, or also the end user who uses the application, everyone should have an operator ID. For developers, they need to log in with their operator ID to use the studios that helps with the development process. Similarly, for the end users, they need to log in with their operator ID, username and password that will help with launching the user portal, and from there they can service the customer. All these operator IDs are managed into the Pega database in a separate table. We know that in Facebook we have a sign up page where we can create a new user account. Similarly in Pega, how do we create a new operator ID? There are three ways to create an operator ID. First is manual creation. The second is during the application creation. And the third is during single sign-on. Let's check one by one. Manual creation. As we know that during the installation video, we looked that Pega provides a default administrator user credentials. So with that user credentials, we already looked into different studios that are available. So LSA can use that admin credentials and then he can create operators manually for all the developers in the team. In this video, I'm going to show you how to manually create operator IDs. The next is during the application creation. That will be my next video. In the next video, we will talk about creating new application, and during that time, we can also create operators that will be part of the application. You can also create during the application creation phase. The third is during the single sign-on. I have to explain briefly about single sign-on. As you can see in the screen, I have launched Google application using my username password. Next is if I try to access a different application, let's try to access the YouTube application. Here, I was never prompted for any username password. It automatically launched the YouTube application. How does it do? It uses the single sign-on. So you don't want to log in every time. Instead, it uses a single login credentials. With that, you can access multiple applications. In almost all the organizations, they will be using some kind of single sign-on. Let's say there are around 1000 employees that are working for a life organization. All those employee details will be stored under some kind of directory. We call it as LDAP directory. And whenever they log in, all the user credentials will be validated against the LDAP directory. Now, if the employees, they want to use multiple applications, they don't want to have username password for each of the application. Instead, they can use the standard username password that we use on an organization level, and every application can provide access by using these standard username passwords. This is what we call single sign-on. Using single login credentials, you can sign on into multiple applications. Pega do support single sign-on out of the box. All you have to do is do some little configuration and then you can enable single sign-on for your application. I'll definitely show this single sign-on in the authentication video. Now that we know how to create an operator ID, let's get to the video and check how we can manually create a new operator ID. What you see in the screen is the login page of Pega Personal Edition. Currently it is hosted in localhost at 8080. I'm going to log in with the administrator at pega.com and the password is install. This is the administrator username and password. It may take a couple of seconds if you are logging for the very first time because Pega builds up the cache for you. Now I have logged in with administrator account. With this I can start creating new operator IDs. So how to create new operator IDs in Pega? There are multiple ways you can use the create menu. I will show you. There are three main ways. First thing, you can go to records, organization, and from here you can right click on operator ID and use the create form. This is one way. The other way is you can use the create menu, go to organization, operator ID, and click on operator ID. This will open up the new operator ID create form. The last way is you can click on this operator ID instance and this will list you the list of operator IDs that are currently exist in the system. I can see there are around 11 operator IDs that exist in the system, and from here you also get a create option from where you can click create to open a new operator ID. This is common for all the rule instances in Pega. These are the ways you can create a new rule instance or a new data instance in Pega. Now before going to create a new operator ID, first we saw that already we have an out-of-the-box operator ID administrator at pega.com. In Facebook, all the account details get persisted into the Facebook data center. Similarly in Pega, we use Pega's database, the connected database, as the data center or the place which stores the data objects. We have two types of schema, rule schema and data schema, and all the operators will stay under the data schema. I'll go to the Postgres admin console and there I already written a query. What it does is it going to select me the user identifier. It gives the operator names from the data schema.pr_operators. This is one of the table which you will use more often when you are working in some projects. PR_operators table is going to hold all the operators who can log in into the Pega server. As I execute this query, this lists me the list of operators that are existing in this server. There are 11 operators. The same thing which you saw from the Pega Dev Studio, under records operators, you can see the same list of instances. What technically Pega does is whenever you click on any records, it makes a query into the right table and it gets you the instances. So you don't want to every time go to database and check the records. Instead, you can use the records explorer and view all the instances or view all your source code that are stored into the Pega database. Currently, there is an instance administrator at pega.com that is already persisted into the database. That is why I'm able to log in with administrator at pega.com. Because the engine code for the authentication, it validates against this table PR_operators. Now I'm going to create a new operator ID frame. In the description, you can provide whatever name you want. In the identifier, it should always start with a letter and don't give any space between. I'm going to just use both places as frame and then create and open. So this is going to create me a new operator ID. If you go to database and check, still you will not find any new entry made into the PR_operators table. This is because still the operator instance is not persisted. You have to fill in all the details before you save any operator instance. Now let's check at the configuration points in an operator ID. First is the contact information block. Under contact information block, you can provide all the basic details. You can start with uploading any profile picture, followed by specifying the title, first name, last name, job title, whatever details you want you can give. The main interesting details will be like a phone number and email. When you are configuring operator ID for end users, this will really help you to send out some notification email, or you can have this phone call notification when you use some kind of IVR or a customer service application. For now, it's not mandatory to me, so I'm going to leave everything as such. In the application access, this is the place where you configure for an operator ID to which application he or she can access to. So how do we specify an access group here? To start with that, I will ask you to check the current operator's application access. Currently, I logged in into administrator at pega.com and I have the access to the Pega platform, right? This is the application which I got access. So let's check the configurations in the administrator at pega.com operator ID. To check your current operator ID, you can go here, click and then open this operator. This will open up the configurations of your current operator. Like in Facebook, how you can update your account settings. Similarly, you can update your current operator settings using this option. Currently in Pega, if you are a developer, you can update any operator's account settings. As you see here, this operator, he has two access group, PRPC administrator, DM sample administrator, and he has access to both the applications, and Pega rules is the default application. So that is why you see Pega platform as the default application. If you open this application, you will see the name as Pega rules. So this is the application, he has the default access, but he can also switch application to DM sample, because in the operator we provide an access group that points to the DM sample application. So this is how an operator get access to an application. This is one of the main thing. If you want to provide any operators to an access to an application, all you have to do is create an access group or use the right access group that points to the application. So here definitely this access group should be pointing to this application, right? If you just click here, you can open the access group rule instance. This is one more tip. Wherever in the Designer Work Studio, if you happen to see this pointer, just click on it, it will open the rule instance. Here, now we are checking the rule configuration for the access group instance. As I told before, access group instance, the mandatory configuration is access group helps to give access to an application. This access group PRPC administrator is giving me access to the Pega rules, which is the base application. Similarly, you can open and check this access group. This will be pointing to the DM sample application. Now you are very clear that to get an access to an application, you have to provide an access group. Now let's get back to the new operator create form. Here I have to provide an access group, right? For now, I didn't create any new application. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide the same access like the administrator access. Prem is going to be the LSA for this A-Life claims department. So I'm going to give him the administrator access. I will copy this PRPC administrator access group and then specify into this operator ID. As you see, Pega automatically populated the application that is used in this access group. It is always mandatory to have at least one default access group. So you have to specify the default access group here. I'm not going to use the other application. I'm just going to use the out of the box Pega rules application. This is all about application access. In the next video, we will create a new application and we will see how we can provide access to the new application. Next is localization block. So what is localization? As I told, A-Life is a Dutch organization. It means most of the end users may have preference on the Dutch language over the English language. So we may need to build application showing the Dutch translated word instead of English. For example, for customer, you may have to show it as client. So how do you develop a Dutch application? Pega gives us a facility to use localization. With localization, you can translate your application easily into any language. The first main configuration is every operator ID can have a default local setting configured under the operator ID. Most of the time, the developers, they may have only the English translated version. You don't know how to have a Dutch translated version, but of course for testing purpose, you may have the translated Dutch version. But for development purpose, you can have the English version. Only for the end users, you may have the Dutch version. So how to give them the right localization? You can specify the local settings into your operator ID. What are the default local settings? I just opened a website that gives you the language list. You see here, there is a lot of ISO language codes. If you want to search for Netherlands, I can see here for Netherlands, it is NL-NL. This is what we use for end users who wants to use a Dutch translated application. For now, I'm not going to use the Dutch translated version of Designer Studio. Instead, I'm going to use EN_GB. GB for Great Britain, it's the British English, or you can also use EN_US, which is a US English. Time zone, I'm going to change to my current time zone. It's going to be Amsterdam. It will be on Europe, Amsterdam. Okay, now we are done with the profile configuration. We updated the contact information. We provided them the right application access. We also updated the localization. Let's go to the work tab. So what does this work tab means? The work tab is really critical when you configure an operator ID for any end user. At the end user is going to do a lot of work into the Pega application. They may have to work on different cases. Let's say clients application need to be worked by a specific team. Then each of the end users operator ID should be configured to the right team, right? So all this organizational structure can be easily configured into the operator ID rule form. Let's check some of the configurations. One is the routing block that helps to route the case to the operators. First is organizational unit. Here you can define the organization, division and unit. What does this means is, for A-Life organization, if you look at the structure of A-Life organization, they have the organization as A-Life. They have different divisions, 5 divisions we saw. We will talk more about this organizational structure in the next video. For now, I'm going to use the default organizational structure that is used in the administrator operator ID. It is pega.com administration and installation. I'm going to use the same thing here. So I'll say pega.com, division is administration, unit is installation. We will update this later once we create a new application. Next is team. As I told before, for end users, you need to point out to the right team. Same like how you register an operator ID into the Pega database, we can also register team into the Pega database. Teams are referred as work groups. Just open up the pointer, that will open up the work group instance called default. Default is the out of the box work group instance. As you can see, the rule set is starting with Pega. It means it is out of the box instance. You can create any number of work groups here. The client's department, they have different teams like payment team, investigation team. You can create different work groups and then point operators to the right work group or right teams. For now, I'm just going to use the default team. Next is the reporting to. If you look at any organizational structure, you may have some kind of reporting hierarchy. The end users can report to the team lead. The team lead can report to the area lead. It can go on. In your business requirement, you may have some kind of escalation email or some approval email where you have to route the case to your reporting manager. So this configuration can come really handy when you configure a reports to. For now, I'm going to configure the reports to of the prime operator to administrator at pega.com. So what you see here is it lists all the operators that are currently exist in the system. Here we have an important point here that you can always have a reporting manager who has already an operator ID in the system. You cannot just have any other name. You should have only the operator IDs that are already exist. As you see, it just lists the 11 operators that are existing in the system. I'm going to use the administrator at pega.com. Next is skill and rating. Let's say the A-Life organization, they have German customers, and this Dutch organization, they have their end users, they have some kind of fluency in German language. So to treat the German customers, the best way is to route the case to the end users who are good in German, right? To do that, you can create some skill rule and then specify a rating for that operators. And one more thing here is, whenever you see an inverted triangle like this, what you can do, you can just click in this field and press the down arrow. That will list you the list of available options. Currently, there are around 10 skills that exist already in the system, and German is the skill that is already defined. So I can use the German skill and specify the rating as 10. I'm not that good even in Dutch, but I just gave here German as 10. You can add one or more skills here. Again, skill, you can click and open. So that is going to open up the instance for the skill configuration. Skill configuration is really simple. You can just specify the range from low to high. The German can have a lowest rating of 1 and highest rating of 10. Since this is an instance, this should come under certain category. Let's check the category of skill. I think it should be under process. Yeah, under process you can see the skill. If you click here, it will show you the list of skills that are already available in the system. If you want, you can create a new skill and then specify the range on the skill. Then you can update the operator. Whoever possesses the specific skill, you can update their operator ID and then specify the range for that operator. Next is work queue and urgency threshold. Before talking about work queue, let's talk about two types of assignments here, or two types of work here. In cases, it can be routed directly to an end user, or it can be routed to a team. Directly to an end user, we call it as a work list assignment. When it is directly routed to a team, then we can call it as work queue assignment. When it is routed to team, anyone can pick and process the case. Whereas when it is routed to any individual operator, then he or she can only process the case. Okay, now we already tagged this current operator to the team default. So under this team or under the work group, you can also specify a default work queue. Work queue here refers to a work basket. You can think it like a basket with a list of fruits there. Teams who are assigned to that work basket can pick up any fruit from there. You can now replace fruits with the case. So work queue or work basket can hold a list of works that are assigned there, and teams who are assigned to that work basket can pick and process the case. Okay, now how do we assign individual operators to a work basket? Definitely it will be in the operator ID configuration. As you see here, you can add one or more work queues to the operator ID. I see an inverted blue, so I'm going to click and press down arrow. That is going to list me the list of work queues that are already existing in the system. I'll just open some out of the box work queues. Work queue is again a new instance in Pega from where you can do a lot of configurations. You can define an organizational chart, you can define a work group, you can also define some operators and roles for this work queue. We'll see more about this work queue in the assignments video. For now, let's get back to the operator configuration. So one operator can have one or more multiple work queues. You can also specify some urgency threshold here. So what does this really means is, let's say you have 3 work baskets. So this operator can pick cases from 3 different work baskets. You can also provide some urgency threshold so that you know which work basket cases to be picked, which has the highest priority for this operator. If a work basket with having the highest urgency threshold, then I can go there and pick the priority cases and work. Next, you see 3 checkboxes. Get from work queues first, use all work queue assignments, merge work queues. Okay. Now, as I told before, cases can be assigned to the individual operator or it can assign to a work basket or a work queue. What is this 3 checkbox meant for? Let's say if I am the end user and I am assigned to some work queue, I can pick any cases. I can do cherry picking. I can pick the easy cases and then quickly finish my work and I can go home. Ideally, that should not be the case. You should be using the employee's productivity. So what you can do is, instead of allowing end users to cherry pick the cases, you can provide them a button, that is a get next work functionality. On clicking on this button, you can automatically route the cases to the employees. So they can identify which is the next best case to work on and they can continue with their work. These 3 configurations help with that. First is get from work queues first. As I told, you can have 2 types of assignments. One, it is routed to you directly, that is called work list, and the other is work queue when the case is routed to a work basket. Now if you use this first option, get from work queues first, it means it gives the priority to work queues or work basket instead of work list which is assigned to you. By default, if you don't select this option, whenever you press get next work, you will get the cases that are first assigned to you. Only after that it goes and check for cases that are assigned to the team work basket. Next option is use all work queue assignments in users team. Just select this option. You will not find work queue array because it is going to use the assignments that is in the users team. As I told, you can have multiple teams and work queues can be configured inside the team. So get next work will use the work queues that are configured into the team instances that is tagged to the operator ID. Currently, I am tagged to the default team and in the default work group, it is pointing to the default_pega.com work queue. It means I can process the cases only under this work queue. You can disable this option. When you disable, then you can also configure your custom work queues. The final option is merge work queues. Let's say you have multiple work queues here. The order of the work queue takes higher priority. But when you use this merge work queues option and you have 3 work queues defined, then it will make one common work basket and put all the cases into that common work basket. And finally, it picks a case from the merged work basket. It means all the work queues gets the same priority. If you don't specify this option, the order takes up the priority. These are all about the routing. So routing a case, it is decided on the organizational structure. It can be decided on the reporting structure. It can be decided on the teams you are tagged. Based on your skill, we can define based on the work queues you are assigned, and you can also use the get next work functionality. Now let's check out the availability of the operators. End users may tend to go for some vacation. They may not be available for some specific period of time. So whom the cases can be routed to, you can configure in this option. The first checkbox is operator is available to receive work. It means cases can be assigned to this operator. If this is unchecked, the case will never get assigned to this operator. This is one of the critical configuration. As a developers, you should not have this option checkbox. In some way, if you have this option checkbox, there may be certain rare situation where the production cases may be assigned to you. So be careful on the production. Never enable this configuration for the developer's operator ID. I'm going to disable it. And the business calendar. Some cases they may need some business calculation. Let's say the case routed to you and it has a deadline of 3 business days. The organization's business days does not involve the weekends, then the case should not involve those during the business calculation. Business calendar helps with the organization's business hours. If you click and open the business calendar, how it is going to look is, it's going to have the time zone, and then you can see the business days. As you see here, the US default calendar, they don't have the business day as Saturday and Sunday. So they will have 5 business days, and the time is 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is how the business hours works. So in a real-time environment, this can really come handy, and a lot of functions that uses this business calendars. I'll have a separate video on explaining how to define a business calendar for your organization. For now, just understand that in the operators, you can tag to the business calendars. Scheduled absences. Some of the employees may have some scheduled or planned vacation. So you can configure the unavailable from and to here. During that time, the cases will never assign to that operator ID. So what happens when the operator is unavailable? You can have some kind of substitute operator. The case can either go to a substitute operator, or it can also go to your team or a work queue. So how do you decide to which operator this case should get routed to? You can specify a default substitute operator, or we can also use a decision tree to find the substitute operator. Decision tree is another rule in Pega that uses some if-else logic to determine the result. So this availability section is all about configuring the availability of the end user. Let's move to the next tab, security tab. Under the security tab, you can configure the security settings of the operator ID. You can update the password from here. I'm going to update the password and give a new password. You know what I'm using? I'm using rules. This is the standard password which every Pega developers use. I'm going to give submit. This is an unattended operator. You may have to create some operator ID that needs to be used for authentication for some API services. In that cases, you can create an operator and then you can mark it as unattended operator. It means this operator can never log in into the Pega Designer Studio via any browser. For now, Prem operator is not going to be an unattended operator. He is a human operator, so I'm not going to use this option. Allow rule checkout. Rule checkout is a concept of Pega software development. If you want to do some kind of software development, you may have to take the code in your checkout, do the development and then push. If you are familiar with the Git concept, it's like take it in your local repository, do your changes and push, right? Rule checkout I will be explaining in a separate video. For now, Prem is going to do some application development, so I'll use this option. Next is use external authentication. There are 2 types of authentication. One is the basic authentication, where operators can provide their username and password to log in. The other is the use external authentication, where you don't use the basic authentication of username and password. Instead, you can use for some SAML or SSO authentication. Again, we will see it in a separate video. For now, this operator is not going to use any external authentication. You can also force password change on next login. Since you are creating a new operator for the developer, you can provide the password and ask the developer to change the password on next login. Instead of asking them to change, you can just force it. So next time when they log in, they will be prompted to change their password. Final option is disable operator. If some operators leaves company, or if you want to restrict access to some operators, you can use this option. You can very well delete the operator if the developer or the end user left the company. These are all the configuration points in the operator rule form. I have updated almost all the mandatory configurations. Now I'm going to save this operator ID. As soon as I save, you see now you get an option to delete. It means like this instance is persisted into the database. Now let's write a query to select the PY user identifier again. And from here I should see the operator Prem. Yes, I do see it is a last created operator. Now that we have successfully created a new operator Prem and provided the password as rules, I'm going to try login with the newly created operator ID, Prem rules, and it should allow me to log in. Again, this is logging for the very first time, so cache is getting built up, and I see that I can log in into the newly created operator ID, and it is pointing to the Pega platform application, where we provided the application access in the operator ID rule form. I hope now you are a bit clear with the operator ID configuration. If you still have some other doubts on the operator ID configuration, please do leave a comment here. I'll be there to answer for that. See you in the next video.